infamous escaping orangutan was the hairy Houdini of the great ape world. When you think of orangutans, you probably imagine hairy, goofy animals hanging around in the rainforest while munching on delicious pieces of fruit. Sure, they can climb trees and swing from branches with the best of them, but they're not exactly known for being stealthy movers. At least, not usually. One orangutan at the San Diego Zoo would certainly beg to differ. Named Ken Allen, he was known for his strategic mind and daring escapes. He would often free himself from his enclosure to go on full-on escapades around the facility. This is the story of the zoo's most notorious escape artist. Ken Allen, an orangutan, was born at the San Diego Zoo in 1971. He was separated from his mother when zookeepers believed she was going to smother him, and he was named in honor of his rescuers, Ken Willingham and Ben Allen. He quickly adapted to his own enclosure and to being around the zookeepers too. Though he was typically well-mannered, he did have one bad habit: unscrewing the bolts from his cage to roam the zoo. In other words, he was quite the escape artist. Ken Allen was always easily contained and returned to his cage following his adventures around the San Diego Zoo facilities. But on June 13, 1985, when he was a teenager, 14 to be exact, his notorious escapes truly began. That night, Ken Allen climbed the retaining wall of his enclosure and casually walked around the zoo while it was still open. He'd been out for several minutes before any of the zoo staff noticed. They managed to return him to his enclosure, but little did they know it wouldn't be the last time. The zoo's public relations team was worried that Ken Allen's escape would make headlines. Naturally it did, though they were surprised to learn the orangutan's shenanigans didn't tarnish the zoo's reputation at all. In fact, Ken Allen had become somewhat of a folk hero. Members of the public were so infatuated with the story, they soon began sporting free Ken Allen shirts and slapping bumper stickers on their cars. Musician Dennis Gersten even penned the track "The Ballad of Ken Allen" about the silly ape. At that point, zoo officials significantly ramped up security around Ken Allen's enclosure, fearing he'd make yet another daring escape. Not only did they dig a moat, but they constructed a 4-foot wall behind it. Yet none of that was going to stop Ken Allen. Within a couple of weeks, on July 29, 1985, Ken Allen climbed the wall again. Rather than aimlessly wander the grounds this time, however, he walked over to visit fellow San Diego Zoo orangutan Otis and threw rocks at him. From there, Ken Allen's escapes only continued. On August 13, 1985, he located a branch and gave it to another orangutan, Vicky. He then demonstrated how to use it in order to open the enclosure exit. Within minutes, they were both free. Following the third escape, zoo officials didn't want to take any chances. They spent thousands of dollars to renovate Ken Allen's enclosure, and they even hired professional rock climbers to try and find all the possible toe, finger, and footholds in this space. By then, Ken Allen had earned a new nickname, Hairy Houdini, after the famed escape artist. Zookeepers realized that Ken Allen knew better than to try and escape around them. To counter this, they began to dress in regular clothes and go undercover. Would he try to get out again? Yep. Their plan didn't work. He was onto them from the get-go. At that point, zookeepers had to install an electric fence wire around his enclosure wall. Nonetheless, Ken Allen attempted to get out. This time, however, when he made it to the top of the wall again, he quickly retreated. Were his escapes coming to an end? Not exactly. While Ken Allen decided to play the zoo rules for a while, the wily orangutan could only be contained for so long. After 2 years, zookeepers thought his daring escapes were over. They figured it was safe to turn off the moat pump for a short period of time. Well, Ken Allen used this opportunity to escape once again. This time, catching him wasn't going to be easy. When zoo officials found him, he took off running, right toward the lion pen. The zookeepers narrowly managed to corral him before he could climb inside. Not knowing what else to do, the zoo added female orangutans to his enclosure, hoping that would keep him distracted. We thought maybe he was jealous of Otis's 3 female friends, Jeff Jewett, San Diego Zoo spokesman, explained. Of course, their plan immediately backfired. Shortly after, Ken Allen actually recruited his female companions to help him. Specifically, Kumang and Jane, who helped him to use a mop to climb the wall and get out once again. What was more, they came with him. Eventually, Jane was captured near the flamingo exhibit and tranquilized, while Kumang was brought back to the enclosure without incident. Fortunately, Ken Allen was also brought back to the enclosure without any trouble. Although Ken Allen never attempted another escape, in total he cost the zoo roughly $45,000 on security to keep him in his enclosure. All the while, local news continued to cover the orangutan's exciting life. Sadly, in the year 2000, at the age of 29, Ken Allen was diagnosed with B-cell lymphoma. Things didn't look good for the ape. Shortly after, zookeepers found it in his best interest to have him put down. He'd become such a beloved figure of the zoo that a publication called the Orange Gang News not only published a 2-page tribute in his honor, but also held a candlelight vigil. Though he might have made their jobs difficult while he was alive, Ken Allen would forever be remembered by zookeepers and the public alike for his daring escapes. Ken Allen might have been quite the troublemaker while he lived at the San Diego Zoo, but he made the zoo staff's job all the more interesting.